Good evening, entrepreneurship management 3850 class. I am honored again to have another exciting speaker here. But most importantly, I'm happy to see you all faces. It's been a couple of weeks. I know that last week you all were working feverishly on your midterms, and so I am excited to complete my grading of them this weekend. And I'm very excited to see your faces. Like we said earlier in the chat box, I know that times are overwhelming, times are frustrated, times are tough. Um, but let's know that we're all in this together, and it's really comforting to see you all here in class today. So thank you for being here. Today, we're going to have an exciting discussion on advocating for entrepreneurs. We have a guest speaker here who is a national and a statewide advocate for businesses. And we will also discuss some other forms of advocacy for businesses. Slide here. So the agenda for today, we'll go over a few housekeeping. We will have a brief lecture that'll last maybe 10 minutes, and then we will continue we will pick up on a fireside chat with Charles O'Neill, who is the chair of the United States Black Chambers, Inc., and is the president of the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce. We work together. He's known me my whole life. He's known me before I existed. So let me first start off with that. But secondly, we are currently working together as I am an executive board member for TAC, which he's president, and we will be hosting a virtual conference next week that you all will see very soon. That will be an extra credit opportunity, but most importantly, it's going to be an opportunity for you to learn more about how business works in different facets. We're going to have national speakers, national economists. We have local entrepreneurs. We have statewide agencies that you can network and talk to. And you will have extra credit opportunities for this class. In fact, if you register for the maximum amount of programs, I believe you can get up to 5 events for this extra credit opportunity. So not 5 points, 5 separate events or workshops during these 2-day periods. So just be on the lookout for that. You'll see more information about that. So housekeeping. The first thing I want to discuss are completed assignments in your midterm grades. I want to, apologize to you about not grading your papers from, I believe, your discussion board 5 or 6. My goal is to complete those by the end of this week and to grade your midterms by this weekend. I also have 90 other students and didn't realize everyone's midterms were being submitted at the same time. So I was a little overwhelmed. My apologies for that. It's not an excuse, it's a reason. And so I will ensure that you will have a good snapshot of what your grades are in this class as soon as possible. All right? The second thing, I spoke with Jake Gannon, and he was our speaker maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago from Rhythm, and we will be conducting his experiment in our class for the month of November. So for the 3 weeks before Thanksgiving and the class after Thanksgiving, we will be enrolled in his web-based program that will allow us to identify our mental health conditions and track it throughout our class period. So be on the lookout for more instructions on those. I am getting with Jake now. I have to give him your UNT Dallas emails, addresses. So be on the lookout for registration information on your UNT Dallas email. Lastly, I've already alluded to this earlier, but there will be some extra credit opportunities coming your way very soon. Next week, October 29th and October 30th, there will be a conference, the TAC virtual conference. This is the organization that I'm on the executive board, where I serve treasurer. Charles O'Neill serves as our president and our leader. And we are having our annual conference, which is open to everyone, um, uh, the October 29th and 30th. And I'm making an executive decision, but MLH Enterprises will cover the registration for any UNT Dallas students who enroll in the program. So MLH Enterprises is a sponsor of this event. It's also my consulting firm. So please send me a message on Canvas or via email after class if you want to attend this conference so I can put you on the list. You must email me so I can put your name in the registration list so you won't pay the $50 fee. All right? And this is going to be free for both days. You can go to any of the meetings or any of the registration conferences services for the 2 days. Charles O'Neill and I will talk about this a little bit more later in our conversation. All right. Being a business advocate. Before we go into the PowerPoint slide where I have the definition of what a business advocate is, could someone unmute themselves and tell me, one, what you think a business advocate is, and two, why are they important?
I think it's just someone who speaks highly about the business, who is an advocate for whatever business that they're speaking about. And it's important because, it's always, I feel like it's better just to have an actual live person being basically like the cheerleader for a company versus just like reading like a Yelp review or reading, something like that. Like you would rather get the word over someone who you know than just a stranger.
Exactly, Holly. And that's a great description on one facet of business advocacy. It's someone who speaks highly of a business. What happens when someone speaks highly of a business? What typically happens in our society? Someone else.
We necessarily gravitate toward it. We spend our money on it. That's how it's advertising, pretty much. Your walking review.
Right. Word of mouth is very powerful, correct? So if we were in the marketplace and I sold t-shirts and I made bomb design t-shirts, but I don't have a budget for marketing dollars, I don't want to have TV ads, it's really important for me to have a strong reputation, one, meaning have a quality product, but two, it's also very important for someone to co-sign on how cool my shirt is. It's very important for that second person, that third party, to sing your praises, because that validates you in other spaces, in other rooms. That's what an advocate does. Not only in the marketplace where you can earn profit from someone co-signing on your product, but on a policy standpoint, if you have an organization or an individual who is not directly getting financial benefit from an organization, but is speaking on behalf of that organization, they will give you the type of respect or the type of reputation in spaces that can allow your business to grow. And that's what business advocates work on day in and day out. And so we're going to have a brief discussion, a brief brainstorming on what you think of what business advocacy is. Then Charles O'Neill will talk about his business journey, what his views of business advocacy are, and then we're going to talk about the TAC conference next Friday and Saturday, Thursday and Friday. Will that work?
Professor, also, I think that like Popeyes, the chicken sandwich, when the guy was like, when all that went viral, and then what's it called? Patti LaBelle's pies, when he was literally singing
Patti
praises. Yeah, I think that's a good example.
Those are two great examples because you had something that happened in social media that caused mass hysteria, which disrupted the marketplace. And that is an academic way of saying a group of people on Twitter for free gave free promotions to Popeye's Chicken in the value of $30 million profits. And those Black Twitter who actually made that really popular received zero financial benefit or infrastructure or acknowledgement from it. FYI, that's why a business advocate is actually very important, because advocates focus on blind spots that entrepreneurs typically have but need to address, but they don't have the time because they have to build on their own businesses. So advocates help them in the political and the policy space. All right. Good examples. So business advocacy, the definition, and this is an augmented definition of what advocacy is per Google and my interpretation of incorporating it in business. It's a person or entity who publicly supports or recommends the inclusion and promotes the interests of businesses. That's what a business advocate is to me. The reason why that's very important is because advocates have to be in love or support something, and they have to verbally and publicly acknowledge. If these two things don't happen to where it causes a support group for advocates, then people who are claiming to be advocates are not advocates. You can have different types of advocates. We see advocates in different industries. A lot of them are called unions. Unions are a group of people in the same industry who has an organization where one representative represents the needs and the issues of an entire group. Advocates are typically organized in a way that they have a collective of like-minded entrepreneurs or business owners that they represent, either in the local, state, or national level. There are also demographic advocates. In the city, let's talk about business organizations. There is the Dallas Regional Chamber of Commerce, which is the larger chamber of commerce in this region that serves the entire North Texas region to bring large corporations to our city. Why is this important? It's important for the Dallas Regional Chamber to advocate for Dallas so that we can bring more economic dollars to our city, which will provide jobs, which will provide opportunities for entrepreneurs to have contracting or subcontracting opportunities, or to just enlarge the economic ecosystem. There are also advocates, there are geographic, there are other demographic advocates. The Dallas Black Chamber, for example, service is welcome to everyone, but its mission is to advocate and to support the growth and creation of Black businesses in the Dallas area. Because that is specific in its definition, that service that demographic. There's also the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. There's also the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce. There are the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, Indian Chamber of Commerce. All of these organizations advocate for specific demographic. And the third type of advocate is a geographic advocate. In the Chamber of Commerce world, we have the North Dallas Chamber of Commerce, which supports and advocates for businesses who are in the North Dallas area. There's the Southeast Dallas Chamber of Commerce. There's an Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce. There's a West Dallas Chamber of Commerce. There's a Lake Highlands Chamber of Commerce. All of these organizations are supporting a geographic area group of businesses in a specific geographic area. And the head or the infrastructure, the entity, are the ones who advocate for their member businesses. With all that being said, why is business advocacy important? In your own words.
Business advocacy is important because it's one of the ways that if you don't have enough money to promote yourself, this would be a better way to get your name out somehow. It's basically more personal as well. People trust people face to face if people recommend something than they do possibly online at times. People have different reviews. People gravitate to some necessarily based off of popularity, but I feel like business advocacy is more a personal aspect for marketing, advertising.
Mm-hmm. All those are really good, Autumn. Thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts? Have you all heard of any of these organizations? Oh, go ahead, Ollie.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say maybe also to add on with Autumn, that maybe like some businesses, like let's just say if I'm a small business and Autumn has a small business, and we might not even know about each other, but through that connection with the chamber, like you're talking about, maybe we can realize, oh well, me and Autumn can actually partner up and do something together, and make both of our businesses stronger, or even form our own something else different. So I think partnership would be a really good reason why that's important as well.
Great job, Holly. Both you and Autumn hit the nail on the head, as well as Jessica, who stated a very important facet of advocate organizations in terms of marketing. This helps each business generate leads. Why is generating leads important? There are multiple ways. The obvious way was described earlier. It helps you make money. What are some other reasons? Yes, exactly. You stay on top of trends. That's a great comment. Whenever you are with a group of other people in your industry, you can learn from them. And when you generate leads, they probably have been experienced in a facet of the industry that you're not as versed in. And so you can use both of their experiences to improve your business product, and vice versa, which improves not only y'all's quality as an industry, but also allows you to leverage a better price point and a value of said industry. So it's really good. Yes, Jessica, could you explain a little bit more on your brand with positive experiences comment, if you can? Jessica? You can't. Oh, you can't. Okay, so we hear you. We see you saying something. So. Oh, got you. All right. Well, you get a pass today. But all right. But thank you for your feedback in the chat room. So without further ado, I want us to continue this discussion on advocacy. I wanted to start this. I wanted to prime this discussion so that you can hear from a lifelong advocate for his community, for industry, for society, in his space, in his realm, and in his sphere. And so I want to introduce you to Charles O'Neill, who serves as he previously served as the president of the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. He currently serves not only as president of the Texas Association of African American Chambers, which is the umbrella organization of 26 chambers of commerce in the state of Texas. But he also serves as chair of the board of U.S. Black Chambers, Inc., which is the umbrella organization, the national organization of all Black chambers of commerce in the nation. Without further ado, Mr. Charles O'Neill.
Good night. Good evening, Matt, and thanks for the opportunity. Welcome, class. How are you guys doing? Everybody's good. All right. And this is, Matt didn't pay me for this part, but I'm kind of fascinated by Matt and I are both fortunate. Both of our moms were teachers, and you guys have the benefit. Matt, you're doing a great job. That's what I want to say. I mean, I grew up loving the teachers, so when I see good teaching going on, it's impressive, and I appreciate that. So you guys have something that you might appreciate it more some years down the road, but you got somebody on your side. So thank you for that, Matt.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
A great conversation starter. Maybe you have heard the term advocate more applied to the legal industry. You often hear about lawyers being identified as advocates, abogado in Espanol, and lawyers get big props for being zealous advocates for their clients, whether they are guilty or not guilty. They approach their defense in the same zealous way. And that's the approach that we take in our industry on behalf of the businesses that we serve. Somebody mentioned it earlier, I think. No matter what the circumstances are, you still advocate for those businesses at the same rate. Let's say, again, I work on behalf of Black-owned businesses. We can ask a question, Matt, as we go through the fireside part, but one of the primary reasons that advocates are important is because things are not fair in the marketplace. Opportunities aren't evenly distributed. Access to capital is not equally available to all business owners. And so organizations like ours work sometimes stridently, always zealously, on behalf of business owners who are deprived of access to capital or deprived of access to opportunity. And so while we do external advocacy, while we try to make sure that financial institutions make their products available equitably in the marketplace, that municipal organizations, government agencies, corporations make access to contracting opportunities available on an equitable basis, that's important. On the internal side, we can advocate, and I think someone mentioned this in there, we can encourage business owners to do joint ventures like Autumn and Holly talked about. We can encourage business owners to hone their business skills, to improve their customer service. And those are internal kinds of advocacies that we can take on to make sure that when we go to business XYZ, corporate or government agency and say, I've got 600 businesses over here that do supply the goods and services that you're buying. Why aren't you using one of them or two of them or all 600 of them? And they'll say some stereotype kind of response. Well, we've never used them before. Oh, we didn't know they existed. I'm not sure that they're capable of performing, or I don't know if they can deliver at the rate that we need. And so as advocates, we can assure them, because we have spent the time on the internal advocacy to ensure business owners are competent, capable, ready, willing, and able to work, that when we present them to those buying agencies or corporations, that they can supply those goods and services. And so we try to be as fair as we possibly can in our advocacy, but the facts are that much of the work that we do is trying to break down the barriers to opportunity so that when you all graduate from college, decide to go into business, that you won't encounter the same kinds of challenges and roadblocks that have existed or could exist in the marketplace currently. That's the role of an advocate as performed by a business advocacy organization.
Thank you, sir. That's a great descriptor. Tell us a little bit about what TAC is, and zoom in a little bit about your work as an advocate in your sphere.
Okay, TAC is as Ms. Houston noted, is for want of a better description, the umbrella organization that represents the interests of the 25 Black Chambers of Commerce that operate in our state. The organization, as currently defined, Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce, dates back to 1988. So a little over, you do the math faster than me, but about
30 years, 30 plus years,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I like to go back a little further. The first instance of a statewide advocacy organization on behalf of Black-owned businesses in Texas was the creation of the Texas State Negro Chamber of Commerce in 1936, right here in Dallas, during the Texas Centennial Celebration. At that time, the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, which is the oldest Black Chamber of Commerce in the nation, founded in 1926. Matt and I share a bit of distinction from others who have led that organization in that we both have served as not only the president, that is the leader of the staff, but we both have served as chair of the board of directors. The Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, and at that time, the second oldest Black chamber in the nation, which happens to be Houston, it was formed about 9 years after Dallas, 1935. I've tried to describe to folk the climate in which all of this activity took place. So if you think about Dallas Black Chamber formed in 1926, 5 years after Black Wall Street was bombed in Tulsa, right? And so Black Wall Street in Tulsa was famed because it was just almost a utopian example of Black capitalism at work. There were hotels and restaurants and doctors and lawyers and dentists and a couple of business owners who were in the oil business had their own airplanes in the 20s now. And so it drew down literal fire on that community. But only 5 years later, there was enough business activity in Dallas's Black community to warrant the creation of a business advocacy organization to work on behalf of Black business owners in Texas. Again, 9 years later, there was enough energy in the state of Texas to need an organization that could represent the interests of these business owners, not just in Dallas, not just in Houston, but in far-flung places. I mean, Ennis, Texas still calls themselves the Ennis Negro Chamber of Commerce. That's how long ago it was founded. Lufkin, Tyler, Waco, Fort Worth, Corpus Christi, Odessa, Midland, all of these cities created Black chambers of commerce because there was little outcroppings of Black economic activity all over the state. But the one thing that they did not have was a central place that they could all get together and say, oh, this is what we're experiencing in Tyler. Oh, man, we're getting this in Waco. Oh, this is what we've experienced in Dallas, and this is how we've grown businesses. And so needing the interaction, number one, swapping best practices across the state, but also determining what were the best fronts to advocate on. So fast forward to today, I am in Austin now, as a matter of fact. Our office is here in Austin, about 3 blocks from the Capitol. I spend about during the legislative session years. You know, Texas is crazy. The legislature convenes every other year in odd numbered years. So we're planning for the next legislative session, which will convene January 12th. During legislative years, I probably spend 70 to 80% of my time in the Capitol, interacting with state legislators, with agency heads, with the governor, his staff, lieutenant governor, his staff, and attempting to change the way the state responds to the presence of Black-owned businesses. Real quickly, and I'll be finished with this part, Matt. Texas has the largest Black population among the 50 states, about 15% of the population. Texas has led the nation in the rate of formation among Black businesses for over 2 decades. Before pandemic, pre-pandemic, there was something between 300 and 350,000 Black-owned businesses in our state. We do expect that post-pandemic, we will have lost 30 to 40% of those business owners, unfortunately. But to the point of advocating on their behalf, with this dynamic presence, this huge ball of energy in business formation, the state of Texas, despite Texas being 15% Black, spends about 1.2% of its purchases for goods and services with Black-owned businesses. So that's where we really earn our stripes as an advocacy organization. How do we change? And you're thinking about a state that spends 50, 60, 70 billion dollars. That 1.2% right now translates into about $320 million. So if we change every percentage point that we change in the way that we spend, that the state spends, we literally change the lives of Black business owners. And so that's how critical this advocacy work is that we can change the way that the state of Texas spends money for goods and services. We improve quality of life in Black communities across the state. And that's what we do as an advocacy organization.
Great job. That's a great summation, and thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I have a couple of questions, and then as we have more questions in the chat box, please, I would prioritize those questions so that students can get the issues answered. You talked a lot about advocacy for Black-owned businesses.
Yes.
Talk about how you collaborate with possible other advocacy organizations of other demographics, other geographics. Just talk about that world with advocacy heads, how advocacy heads work with each other to understand other people's viewpoints, but also have a balance of the work that you're doing for your community.
Again, here in Austin, our closest ally in the work we do is an organization we generically called TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. They're a little, by just a couple of years, younger than TAC as an organization. Clearly, with the huge Latinx population, or Hispanic population in Texas, they have a bigger core group of business owners in the state, a bigger population base, but face the same challenges that we face in securing contract awards for their members. And so we spend a significant amount of our time working in concert with legislators to change the way the states, and this is how big the hill is that we're skating against. As I mentioned, Black spend in the state of Texas is about 1.2%. Hispanic spend is about 3.6, 3.7%. Clearly, Native American or original people spending is negligible, and Asian Pacific Islanders is about 1%.
Yeah, 1%.
And all told, excluding white women, which is added to the historically underutilized business mix, or the minority women business enterprise, cubbyhole. About 94, 95 cents of every dollar spent goes to a white-owned business. That's how critical it is when a state as Texas is a 15% Black, probably conservatively 40% Hispanic, probably closer to 46%, about 5-7% Asian American. So clearly the browning of Texas is not coming, it's here. But it has not affected materially the way the state returns inequity to taxpayers. And so that makes the work that we do that much more critical, and it makes our collaboration as organizations that much more powerful when we can make the case that, again, I think ultimately my description of the work that we do is we're in the quality of life business. When businesses are profitable, when businesses are able to hire new employees, when businesses pay more taxes in their local jurisdictions, more of their employees buy new cars, buy new houses, pay more tuition, send more children to college, we have changed, again, the quality of life in the communities that these businesses operate in. So I think it's just absolutely critical that organizations like ours do collaborate for the benefit of the whole. And so clearly, Matt, you know this, it's not just at the state level. Over the years, we've had a strong working relationship with, now it's called the Asian Chamber of Texas. It was the Greater Dallas Asian American Chamber of Commerce, Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. At the national level, we do have, at the U.S. Black Chambers, we have existing relationships with the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which interestingly enough, the president of that organization is from San Antonio, Texas. So we got Texans working all over the map on the national level. The National, Gay and Lesbian Chamber and the Pan-Asian Chamber of Commerce. And so even at the national level, we're trying to maximize the power of these inter-ethnic collaborations for the benefit of all of us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for eloquently answering that. I feel like I learn something new every time I have an interaction with you. Let's go back to your beginnings. I want to talk about what created this spirit of advocacy. And we're going to the very beginnings. Home beginnings, Georgia, but by way of Killeen, Texas. I know that you drive through that area on your way to Austin when you commute from work for work. Talk to us about what your childhood was like to create this advocate.
I think I was very, very fortunate. I think, as Matt mentioned, my father was from Georgia. He was in the military. My mother is from Texas. My mother was extremely fortunate for the time in which she grew up to have the opportunity to go away to school. She was fortunate enough to go to Spelman in Atlanta, and her first job was teaching in a little town, clearly in the 40s. It would have been a little town that had a Black school. Interestingly, small world kind of stuff. The woman who had charge for the county Black school hired this other teacher the next semester, a man who had been in school at Clark in Atlanta. This new teacher happened to be her younger brother, and that was the story of my parents meeting. They both were teachers in this small town. Shortly after that, he was drafted for World War II. My mom, again, was from Texas. She moved back to Texas. His first duty station for basic training was here in Texas. They got married before he shipped out. But he was a career Army officer, retired at Fort Hood. That's where I grew up, in Killeen, Texas. So I was fortunate in the sense that because much of our early schooling was on military bases or at schools close to military installations. I never had those artificial bumpers on that I didn't worry about being, if I was going to be smart enough, or if I was going to be less smart than white students, because I was always the smartest one in my class. And so, so I never had those kind of restrictions. As I mentioned, my mother was a teacher. My father taught in the military. He taught Prairie View, in fact, where I was born. He taught ROTC at Prairie View. So the kind of constant pushing to challenge or to push against perceived barriers was always present in our household. That was kind of the expectation. You're going to do this, if there was any, I guess, again, I'm clearly a student of the 70s, the Black Power era, and that shaped kind of my perspective on how I tend to view the challenge of leveling the playing field, if you will. If I fast forward sometime from the time I went to school in Denton, my first job in my responsible adult life was at the Dallas Weekly. I was in the newspaper business. For a year prior to that, I had worked at the Killeen Daily Herald, sold advertising for them. And then, like I said, I came to Dallas and worked in the newspaper business for not quite 20 years, about 10 years working for other people. I ran some other folks' newspapers, and then about the middle of that time, had the good fortune of co-founding a Black newspaper with a prominent attorney in Dallas, Texas. We started the Dallas Examiner newspaper in 1986. That paper is still going. I am no longer with it, but it is part of the legacy of the work we do. But if I back up just a couple of years from now, I was in the newspaper business. So my first introduction to the work of a Chamber of Commerce was I was running another newspaper in Dallas, the Dallas Post-Tribune, and this gentleman came to our office and said, "Young brother, we really, really need some help. We need somebody to serve on the City of Dallas Economic Development Advisory Board. And we think that you would do us a good job." And so I was drafted. That was 1982, 83, when I began first working on behalf of chambers. That gentleman was, at that time, the president of the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. His name was Thomas L. Houston. That is Matt L. Houston's father, who drafted me into the chamber business, and I've been hooked on it ever since. So that's what, 36 years ago now, Matt? 37 years ago. What has kept me involved is the persistent evidence of the problem. The problem is there is imbalance. There's problem is that there is iniquity. There's problem that there is unequal treatment of, in our case, again, Black-owned businesses in the marketplace. And without constant attention focused on those disparities, I believe that folk will assume that everything is okay. Everything is not okay. And when Black businesses are not profitable, when Black people are not able to earn at the same rate as others for whatever is their pursuit, it impacts everything. It impacts your ability to access quality education, quality health care. Where do you have to go? How far do you have to go to get groceries? I was on another call earlier today with some law students from SMU. They were kind of Google guys dazzled over the terminology food desert. And we've all heard the term over the years. And I'm saying we talk about food deserts as if they're naturally occurring phenomena, right? But food deserts are evidence of the conscious decision of a corporation to withhold a brick and mortar presence of a grocery store in a market that obviously needs groceries. And so that's another advocacy role, perhaps for someone other than, because there's legal challenges involved in that, but that again is emblematic of the kinds of challenges that present themselves to Black-owned businesses and always will need attention until and unless when you guys start your businesses, you don't have to face those kind of glaring disparities.
Good deal. Wow, thank you. Quick question. Did your dad teach my dad ROTC at Prairie View?
He actually,
69?
no, but he did, no, he was gone by the time Tom was there, but he did teach Dr. Todd. He
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Oh, man, I was surprised when I got to Dallas, man, all the guys, oh, man, you talking about O'Neal? I got O'Neal, you know, so yeah. But he left a little bit before Tom there. In fact, he left shortly after I was born.
Gotcha.
He went to Korea.
Oh, gotcha.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. So I want us to talk a little bit about advocacy in 2020 because, as you said, you started in '82, specifically for economic development space for the Black community. 2020 in the space, I want to first acknowledge there are stereotypes. There are also data that has shown a disconnect between age demographics of leadership in the Black community. Mm-hmm. And I want to give you your praise because for the 15 years I've been an advocate, I guess since I was 21 or so, you have made a conscious effort to keep the lines of communication open to not only myself, but you always jump at the opportunity to teach a class, jump at the opportunity to be a guest lecturer at a young professionals, meaning to give your perspective. Why are you motivated to actively engage in something that a lot of your peers don't do?
Well, one, because I've been such a beneficiary of older brothers, older sisters taking me under their wing and saying, hey man, you do this, do that. So Mr. Houston, of course, Fred Finch, Tony Davis, I can just go down the list of folk who embraced me in Dallas. Dickie Foster, who at the first female publisher of the Post-Tribune, Connie Davis, Davis Apparel. Those are folk who, like young folk, or like they like to say now, poured into me when I was young and crazy and decided that there was something in me that was salvageable and said, hey, so I have some responsibility on that side. The other thing, and you and I have had this discussion, Matt, over the years, I find particularly troubling the ease with which Black folk have, particularly Black folk. I don't think it's anything particularly unique to us, but the way that we have internalized or adopted these generational identifiers. You know, I find that discomforting, that we rush to make distinctions between a young person and an old person when we're both experiencing the same thing. I don't dispute that we might respond to those differences, to those things differently. I don't dispute that, but we can't set up the artificial determinant that we're going to absolutely view them differently based on some chronological distinction. You know, and I don't think that's constructive, number one. And I think that when we allow pre our ever having sat down and viewed the same challenge to say, well, I'm going to look at it differently than Matt because he's X number of years younger than I am. What we do know culturally is that we perhaps have let go some of those quote unquote rites of passage opportunities that we had. The barbershop, you know, you started going when you were 4 and you finally made it up to the big guy's chair and you didn't get the little booster seat in your chair and you were welcome into the crowd, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing when young sisters, Easter Sunday, we getting that head tightened up. you started off with the, you know what I'm saying? And then finally you got in the big chair, you know, and you got to say, I'm going to get me some twists. I'm going to get me some color, you know what I'm saying? So, but you were there in conversation with the older sisters, and they were like, girl, you're girl, you know, you're just too short, girl. What do you know? And we were getting that. And those were those things that made us understand that there was really no difference between me and the old guy other than our age. He saw it before I did. He pulled my coat. Hey man, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? And so we're allowing ourselves to be blocked from those kinds of interactions, I think, when we accede to this cross-cultural influence. I'll put it like that. I really struggle with the terminology, Gen X, Y, Z, Boomer, blah blah blah. I call them young folk and old folk, young Black folk, old Black folk. You know what I'm saying? Older Black folk. It's just too much easier than that. And again, I think because of the time I spent in the newspaper business, I don't think on a day-to-day basis we are conscious of the influence of propaganda, the constant barrage of messages that are just designed to sway us one way or the other, particularly for someone else's benefit. That's the power of propaganda. It can make you do stuff that if you were left to your own devices, you might not do. But that's the power of marketing, the power of social media. We've seen bots jump in, Russians jump in, changing the way people feel, think, and respond without there ever having given a conscious thought to how they're being influenced. And I just know that, again, the power of media is so pervasive in America. It was already strong with television and radio, now film, and now YouTube, and now social media. And it can be a bit much if you're not constantly on guard. And I think that we have had our guard dropped, you know, and I think it impacts the way that we're able to interact age to age. Black folk are not the enemies of young folk, and young folk are not the enemies of old folk, you know, so.
That's a great response. And it's very consistent. Again, and I've learned the fine tune just gets a little better every time we have our interaction. So I truly thank you for that, for pouring into me, much less my class. So thank you for that, Mr. O'Neill. I do want to ask a couple of questions that are in the chat. One of the questions: are there qualifications to join the Black Chamber of Commerce or to join TAC?
The one overarching qualification is you must absolutely believe in the work that we're doing. And our work is advocacy on behalf of the businesses that we serve. You can be a business owner, that's fine. But you can be a person that says, hey man, I support that work. I want to be involved. And so yes, that is the qualification as far as I'm concerned. Understand what our mission is, sign on to that mission, bam. We are a membership organization, of course, as you might imagine, both the Dallas Black Chamber, the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce, USBC, are membership organizations. It is nominal individual membership. I think, Matt, you can help me even on that, Mr. Treasurer, $100 a year, I think it is for.
Individual memberships, and then jumps up for organization.
Yeah. So, so that's the predominant qualification, support the mission of the organization.
Good deal. I think this was a part 2. It said, for instance, do you have an established business with LLC? Can you be, you've already answered that. It can be anyone. But also when you join, another thing that I've learned that that's really beneficial, if someone who cares about Black entrepreneurship of any color joins your organization, and then all of a sudden you learn about this ecosystem and how it's important in the larger frame of things, that helps people create businesses just from that exposure. And
Okay.
so you don't have to have all of your ducks aligned. You don't have to have your best business plan ready to apply to be a member. The heart really should be there first, because if you're able to see and witness it, and you are passionate about it, that can mold how you can fully be testified.
Yeah, if I can say, Matt, real quickly, I often tell folk, particularly when I was at the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, I sincerely believe this, that why should I join the chamber, man? What's the best reason? And I would say that, to me, the best reason to join a chamber is to sit next to someone who probably has experienced something that you're getting ready to experience, and they can help you walk through that part of your business experience, the arc of your development of your business. Being in a room full of people who got the same kind of energy, again, the same kind of goals, is empowering in itself, And if I go back to something that Autumn and Holly talked about earlier, if I'm in the t-shirt business and I'm sitting next to somebody in the t-shirt business and I'm buying t-shirts 15 at a time at $6, and they're buying t-shirts 500 at a time for $1.50, either one of us is doing something wrong, or one of us can learn something from the other one, right? And so it may be that my strong suit is not really selling t-shirts. I might be really, really good at graphic design. I might be really, really good at social media. So why not let this person that's got clearly a great supplier relationship, he's getting the goods in, or he or she is getting the goods in at a price that allows us to make a profit, just add in my skill, or it may be that I'm really better at accounting and I can make sure that the books are straight for the business. That's a joint venture opportunity. That's an acquisition opportunity. That's a merger opportunity. And so we've got to think about, particularly if we're going to be competitive in a truly, truly, I hate to use cliches, global marketplace, scale is going to be so critically important to the way we're able to hack out a success in the marketplace. You got to be big enough to show up in the marketplace in a size that truly makes you competitive. I think that joint venture opportunities, joint ventures, including mergers and acquisitions, to grow to scale is the shortest route to that kind of real competitive advantage in the marketplace.
Great response. The next question is a great segue for us to discuss the conference, the virtual conference next week. So the question is, will organizations, I'm assuming advocacy organizations, assist you with starting a business? Now, before you answer that, I want to give my short, unsolicited answer. Mm-hmm. Yes, but there are different levels and different roles and functions per organization. Why do I say that? Charles O'Neill at TAC should not, in order for him to be efficient and effective as an advocate for 26 chambers of commerce and often every other year, should not have a primary focus to teach an individual business how to start a business. In his ecosystem, he's very relevant, and that ecosystem will provide that. But that is something that's either a local organization, whether it's the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, or even business organizations that also advocate for businesses that are in the community that feeds into the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, so that you can have a level of education at each level. Why do we say that? Is because in advocacy organizations, there are still systems, like every other business, like every other enterprise. and the more efficient your system is, the more impact organizations can be. And so next week, TAC is hosting a virtual conference. This virtual conference will have college presidents on the panel. They will have business leaders. They have a national economist that is going to provide the economic forecast. We have a global, international CPA. This is an African-American man who is not only a CPA, which is already a distinction, but he is certified. He's a certified accountant for international transactions. He is providing a presentation. And those level of workshops, experiences, or things that local businesses who may have been established before, who know their ways around the community, but want to get that state contract, are attuned for. Just as local organizations have quarterly or monthly workshops within their committee. So let's talk about the TAC virtual conference. Why does this conference exist every year? And what do you expect outside of my commercial already that I said about the conference? What can someone expect?
It is, Matt. It's much like you would experience in a local monthly or quarterly meeting of a local chamber. Again, the opportunity for business owners, chamber leaders from Odessa to sit in the same room with chamber leaders from Corpus Christi, from Houston, to again swap this war stories of our experiences in our marketplace. Very clearly, the chambers that operate in Texas's municipal centers, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston and Harris County, here in Austin, Travis County, San Antonio, Bexar County. Those business owners operate in very dynamic, hyper-energetic economies. Very much different than a Black chamber that serves Longview, perhaps, or Abilene, perhaps, where there's a much smaller Black community, much smaller business community. However, some of the things that we have done are made some inroads on at the city of Dallas, say for the city of Dallas's goals program, where the city of Dallas, at least by statute, at least by ordinance, attempts to assure a certain percentage of spending with ethnic minority-owned businesses. That was something that we worked very closely with the Dallas Hispanic Chamber on 25 years ago to ensure that about 25% of the city's spending goes to ethnic minority-owned businesses. That has yet to occur in Abilene. However, when those business owners, chamber leaders get together, we can offload those strategies that we used to achieve those goals in a big market and help them work out a strategy to get them applied in their individual markets. And so that's one. The other, of course, is just straight skills transfer. You talked about real dynamic presentations by Washington, D.C. based economists, world or global CPA. We've got this year the presidents of Texas Southern University, Prairie View A&M, Houston Tilson University on a panel this year talking about the future in education, much like what you guys are doing here now. I think that'll be really interesting to you guys, how we educate future business leaders and future business advocates. Then we will have a panel with our chairperson, who is a female business owner, second generation business owner, with her in a fireside chat, if you will, again, Matt, with the chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. Texas has 19 Black representatives, 2 senators, 17 members of the House of Representatives, Their umbrella organization is called the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. Very helpful to us as an organization in advocating for the kinds of public policy results that end up with Black folk earning more opportunities for more business from the state of Texas. So we'll have a conversation with them, and then a little expanded conversation with a state representative from the Dallas area, a state representative from the Houston area, and a business owner who has some level of success in accessing opportunities from the state. Local chambers have a role in assisting us in delivering the kinds of information that they believe will be most helpful to business owners. And so our local chambers in Collin County and in Fort Worth and in Austin and San Antonio all have workshops during this conference. And so it's a little different for us this year, as you might imagine. In a typical year, we'd be in a hotel ballroom with a couple of breakout rooms and be going breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This virtual format is new for us. Again, Matt has been extremely helpful to us as an organization, not in just helping us shepherd this thing through, but actually sourcing the contractor that's going to provide our virtual format for us. So I think that we're going to come out with a product that you'll be pleased with. I certainly hope you take advantage of MLH Enterprises' offer of registration for the conference. There is a workshop, in fact, Mr. Houston and one of his close working colleagues who is on the city council in Prairie View, Texas. He is currently a candidate for mayor of Prairie View, a recent PhD graduate of Prairie View A&M School of Education. But in past years, they have hosted a workshop for us with college students. This year, it's a little broader, just young entrepreneurs. And so I think that you will enjoy that particular workshop. But I think all of them will be helpful for you as we go forward. I'm really looking forward to it, Matt. As we talked earlier today, I think this is here for the long haul. You know, we better get good at it, you know, because I don't think it's going away anytime soon. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the new norm. And so I think as entrepreneurs, it's really important to identify these opportunities, pivot, and to move forward so that we survive. And so that works for our advocacy organizations as well. So thank you for, one, your time this evening, and two, thank you for just, again, the knowledge drop. I always appreciate you investing in me, investing in people and things that I care about, which speaks of your character. So I truly appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know, and I have to say it to this group. I say it all the time. Trust me, y'all. It's gonna be young brains that get it done for us. Okay, so I'm counting on you, man. Just I'm counting on you. So thank you, Matt, for the opportunity. I really, really do. If we ever get to a point that we can do it in person, I'm all in. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, I see Carolyn. Well, I'll read that a little bit later. That is the conclusion of our class today. You will have, I will send you an email or a Canvas message on the conference information. If you would like, please go to our website to register. I will plug that in here. Oh, sorry, that was the private message. Let me send this to everyone. Okay, if you go to tac.org and then go select the virtual conference link, please register. Oh, no, you don't have to do that. Send me a private message so that I can add you to my list, so you won't have to go through that process. Also, Charles O'Neill provided his email address in the chat box. It's cro@tac.org. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you, class. Like I said at the beginning, I will complete grading by our next class so that you can have a good snapshot of what your grades are for the first half of the semester. Thank you, and class is dismissed.
All right. All right. Take care.
Y'all have a good night. Thanks, Charles.